And hello, everyone, and officially welcome to the third installment of 100 Pictures of Honey. Really pleased with the readers and the audience that we've had so far, and I'm so happy that you're with us tonight for these three amazing readers. As we go through the evening, each reader is going to have 15 minutes. I will be dropping their bios and links to purchase their books in the chat before they read, and then if you miss it and you want me to repeat it at the end, just let me know. So I'll start by just sharing in the chat where you can find us on social media, which is I know where I'm reaching most of you. The recordings are all available and they will be available the morning following. So tomorrow morning, if you want to hear something again, or you have a friend who wanted to come but couldn't make it, you can direct them to our YouTube channel and the recording will be up there. I do pay the poets a small honorarium for their time because I don't think poets get paid enough for the things that they do. So if you would like to support the reading is me. If you would like to support the reading in that endeavor, there's also my PayPal there, which helps me to keep the series going and to pay the poets. Tonight's three readers I put together because I feel like all of them, through image and narrative, through the juxtaposition of both the ordinary and the surreal, paint really beautiful and specific portraits of living, both the beauty and the damage of living that coexist. And I think they have three very different voices that address very human concerns, and I'm looking forward to hearing them as a trio. So we're going to get started with Ines Pujos, and let me drop her information in the chat here. I first read some, I think the first poem I read by Ines was in a droid journal, if I'm not mistaken. Oops, sorry. That is not the thing I want to put in the chat. Sorry, I'm struggling with my glasses tonight, so I'm going to try this one more time. My apologies. Somebody can sing a song if they like to fill the void. Sometimes arthritis and bifocals are not a good combination for quick computer work. There we go. Okay. Ines's collection, Something Dark to Shine In, which just came out from Sundress a couple months ago, is a really beautiful book. And I have a real admiration for her ability to manipulate image, both sometimes very surreal imagery, into this kind of tapestry that talks about legacy and the body, what the body holds, what the body remembers from its legacy, and also to remind us always that there is a sting in the sweet and that there are bones under the dirt. So without further ado, Ines, it's all yours. You can unmute and it is your turn.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. And thank you again for having me tonight. Very excited to be here. Wish we did more Zoom readings like this. It's so accessible, makes it easier. And definitely like a lifesaver during the early days of the pandemic. I remember like the first few weeks, it's nonstop, like poetry readings, and then it like trickled down. And I think with Omicron, it went back. So really excited to be part of a virtual reading. So thank you for your kind words, Donna. Like that was very sweet. I hope to balance the morbid and the brightness. Something that I've, struggled, especially with all the dark that's happening now. So I'll start with the first poem in the collection, because I feel like it's a good introduction to my work. On Becoming. When the family dog goes missing, you go days without showering and coat your gums with moss. Take to comb and spray your bush thick in artichoke. Admit it. Fall and find him in the woods, his head now unrecognizable, a black wool of flies sticks to him. Bring him to the meat swap and trade his skull for a bundle of beets, his teeth for peonies. With machete in hand, hack open the belly of a pregnant cow. With placenta shriveled, you crawl inside. It's winter. There is no more light. Strap a deer's face to your own. Take antlers for ears. This one is one of my favorite poems, just because it was for one of my favorite people. So, Against Porcelain, for Maxim, drowned August 2011. Scientists in Hong Kong have discovered a prehistoric fish wash ashore in my bathtub among hair nods and soap suds. National Geographic is on its way. This creature with 10 eyes and no fins. There are debates whether it is native. I stick my hand in the giant tub, and when I don't feel any scales rub against me, I dunk my head and see you, Maxim, turn into a jellyfish. St. Christopher dangles from your neck. He's scraping against porcelain with his nails. And I don't know how bones get so heavy, a pair of lungs, the island of Guadeloupe. Stop absorbing water, Maxim. The man from the hotline told me that if I say your name again, you won't taste how sweet the water has become. Please stop opening your mouth. There's a fish in my bathtub. He climbs into throats. Scientists estimate he can live up to 60 years or more. They say he has 10 eyes from which he spits blood to scare off his predators. He's an endangered species. Maxim, please pull the cord. Maxim, the crew is at my door and I can hear them. I can't see anything past this. Oh. Thank you. Yes. Trying to balance the darkness. Okay. Let me tell you the things you are missing from. There's a cat that shows up in door frames each time he smells death. He paws his way in. Tipsy, I ran into a shadow at my feet. I'm getting stranded in my mouth when I see two knives go to love. Here, I love you, accepting more suggestions. 2 a.m. and another dies in terms of a low sun. Long ago, we scratched in our sleep. I've grown mortified by finality. I mean that everything hides us. Look, trees. Let's see. Lily of the Valley, and content warning, sexual assault, rape. Lily of the Valley, 1, all bulby and flushed whites, sent on the 1st of May for G's birthday. Just a year ago, I swore to oath her in silence after I told her, your friend who you saw yearly at weddings and who visits you and your little family, who you see at concerts and break bread and spill egg yolks over brunch with, yes, him. He raped me. A beat and the room goes mute. He raped me. A beat, me. He raped me. He raped me. G, can you hear me? G did and said she doesn't believe it's a type of hunger he is capable of. 2. The Lily of the Valley delivered to her home. It is a good home, and my nephews find the box covered in dirt. A year in, and I moved to California. There, the dirt isn't laced with chips of plates or lead paint. There are snails and earthworms, the occasional tiny beetle. There, the dirt is readying itself, and I box it up in vases. Sometimes I plant an onion bulb in mason jars. Give it time, the bulb will shed into stalk with a tower full of tiny white bells. 3. I'm moving back to New York City to be closer to the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, where I'll sprinkle Californian dirt on the marbled altar with a carved baby lamb all in gold. I've got too many oaths to take and keep a small knife in my boots. It's a hunger G doesn't know. Don't be mistaken. I'm not one of the dead, all fanning and whites. 4. I lay out in velvet, craned above a porcelain bowl. I've turned to purges of dim sum and pork buns. I'm all for eating tiny pillows all stuffed and featherless. My hunger has become relentless. I file my teeth and keep them sharp. They cut into cheek my tiny beats. My hunger has gone bad. My good sister doesn't believe in such cravings. At night and dark, I'll roam past each stoop and ironclad doorway, searching for that son of a bitch. I'll press his head to the ground and make him sniff the dirt and dig his fingers dirty, and that son will be readying himself a grave. Lighten up, please. Honey badger. It's been a long winter, drunk from stripping away roots and bulb of berries. I know 12 ways to be avoided and watch snakes weave into sand, cracked lightning bolts, their rattles burst night open. Then comes the spring to kill. It makes me dizzy how blood rushes to the surface and paints everything ruby-throated, torn ligaments flossing in between my canines. Sweetness ends with my nose in the front door of a house full of bees. I claw my way in, split the walls, nails dripping in gold honey. What's a swarm of stings? The bees form 3 masks for birthday wishes around their intruder. I open my mouth, invite them in just to get the smell of me. How are we doing on time? Sorry.
You are great. You have 5 or 6 more minutes at least.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Okay. The mellified men. There is a tribe of martyrs who are fed honey, nothing but raw gold for months. Their jaws sink into combs until their teeth grow twice the size, coated in wax. Bathe them in honey, their toenails turn pollen. Go ahead, you can kiss these feet. Watch the skin loosen from bones too sweet for its own marrow and how easily it pulls apart. Their kidneys churn out pellets of nectar in place of urine, and soon their knees to chest in a small wooden box dated with death and buried in shallow graves for 100 years. And they will taste sweet to the tongue, and they will be confection and taken for remedy, a looming ache above the eyes, a bout of bruises, and the seasonal cold. Imagine a gold finger wrapped and dangling on the neck of a child to cure a swollen tooth. Okay. In good faith. Ona, good morning, love. Spent it eating apricots straight off the branches with Jamie. Dreamt about Leslie. She had no hands, yet managed to set her mattress on fire. Still haven't opened the taro pack you got me. Here, the figs taste good. Here, we eat directly from trees. Took the train to San Francisco for drinks with my friend, the Indian prince. He shaved his head to give up sin. He writes letters posing as Zoe Blood and writes to her mother saying he's sorry he can't attend the funeral. On my walk back to the apartment on Twin Peaks, a man pointed to my knee still in brace and said, "You fucked too much in your previous life. What about now? Maybe I was a dog? That would explain my tongue." Stood night up. Blue is the only hue I taste here. Blue of sky depends on the darkness of the empty space behind it, in which case blue is something of an ecstatic accident produced by void and fire. When we have a kitchen together, let's paint the walls with robin eggs. Got lost for hours with Jamie while cruising for strawberries. We squatted in bushes and peed, thinking we were alone, laughing as we looked out for snakes. Heard footsteps and found a brown cow standing a few feet from me, her bell ringing. Peed all over my skirt. Missed your call and replayed your message. I howled at the moon, and with it came an echo of coyotes. Here, people sleep nursing their guns, the doors unlocked. Here, we eat fireflies straight off branches. Here, we tuck glow-in-the-dark virgins in our pockets and recite prayers by counting teeth. Calvary. I ride naked on a crystal elephant to the gates of dawn. The priest pierced my nipples with the corners of a golden crucifix. I'm your savior, your mother. I want you to bite me here, pull the raspberries away until skin tears. At the center of town square, I dismount my elephant and crouch with a paintbrush and my cunt and paint. Priests wrap half moons crescents around my neck and watch as brushstrokes get heavier. They want me to lick myself off the floor, bleed so their stars have something dark to shine in. You'll have to break me before putting me in the ground with flecks of gold paint on my thighs. My arm not worthy of being a relic nailed to the walls of your cathedrals. My teeth not white enough to be encased in an amber ring. The eyes of a cat left without milk. No femur of mine holy and framed in a silver window of your breast. No, let's see. I want to read something that I don't often read. Let's see. Everything hides us. Shadows of fiddleheads fainting, and the burst that follows. Hands glowing in the dark, taking out light. The possibility of fire erasing a face frightens me. There remains of martyrdom, a teal car, a relic heart. No more, no more, no more missing the smell of you. Can't I crave something else today? I'm blown away by the amount of cake served at funerals. Promise you'll take care of me. I've dislocated my own skin. We can't help ourselves. We're that breakable. April is almost here with her 2 versions of weather. Bring less clothing, more hours. And I'll just do one more because I realized in my book, I have a long poem that's several pages, and I have a poem right after that, and even I have forgotten about it. So I'll give it some attention. Sinking Cathedral. All the women in my family are buried here, laid out facing west. Of blood and bone, we hunger to haunt the living with grief and scare everyone whites. A sea of linen to mix along with gasoline until nothing is left but architecture of bones. Caged, we miss the smell of rose on fingernails. It's quiet down here, and the heat is bearable. Cracked in two, they've butchered you, a rib and femur pressed against dirt like a flower. I rotate south and begin another year as a sacrificial lamb with palms out. Let's consider what the beekeeper is promising me, other than the front steps of the dead. Thank you.
Thank you so much for starting us off with such beautiful work. I highly recommend you read the whole book. The repeated images of bees and honey and teeth build and build and build as you read through the whole collection. So again, highly recommend that you get one for yourself. Thank you so much, Ines. Our second reader is Taylor Byas, and I will drop her information into the chat. Taylor is, I'm in awe of her, multiple award winning, multiple books coming out, taking her PhD exams very soon, within the next couple of weeks, I believe. Working in the schools right now. She's doing it all. And I love Taylor's work because her work is deeply personal, yet really firmly rooted in history, both of racial trauma and erasure. And she uses form and ekphrasis and her own really keen language. She's very deft with many types of poems, and I'm always jealous when something new of hers comes out, and I see her on Twitter going, "Oh, I just dashed off a Pantoum," and then I'll see it in a journal and be like, I wish I could dash off something that sounded quite that good. So I'm really looking forward to hearing Taylor read, and I'm looking forward to, according to being shown in the chat, that reminded that she is a hugger. So I'm hoping that I can get one of those at AWP with my mask on, of course. So take it away, Taylor.
Thank you so much, Donna. Looking forward to hugging you and to anyone else who's going to be at AWP. The Adrian, the best hugger. So you have confirmation in the chat from Adrian, who has experienced it. So thank you so much for having me, to Ines and Amorak for reading alongside me and everyone else who is here tonight. So I'm going to kind of read, like, I couldn't decide where to spend most of my time. So I was like, I'll just sort of read a poem from each kind of collection, and then I'll read a few new things. So that felt like a good balance. So I'll start with one poem from Bloodworm, and I'll do the Titanic Museum in Orlando, Florida. I board 1912. A fake boarding pass renames me like a new document, brands a fresh time of death. No cameras to recall what I cannot. The necktie and sock starched by ocean, a pocket watch, a gilded macaroon, balded of gold flecks, its hands pegged on salt-annulled hours. I don't look for myself in the list of dead. The names like Star Wars opening crawl graved in thin ice, the letters thin scars. But a plaque wards off my touch. An iceberg sweats in another room, and I press my palm into its face until it aches. The surface ticketed with handprints and finger holes from the guests that passed before me. But this is the easy part. On the fake deck, I forget myself. Lights pitched over the railing to parrot water without breath, waveless. One of the doors, portholes black as a moonless night. And catch the hollow of my own mouth. The surprise at this sudden rewrite of history. The reflection of my Black face, a stranger to this ship. Okay. I'm very online. I'm a very online person. I'm on Twitter a lot. And there was this weird thing that happened on Twitter where there was like this cartoonish image of a tampon that was posted. And this man responded and was like, oh, asymmetrical images, curvature and drawing, especially in the context of a bodily function which occurs below the belt, tends to conjure thoughts of mischief. And I was like, what does that even mean? And so of course I wrote a poem about it and I titled it the tweet, his response. So the poem is titled by that response, in response to a tampon tax abolished image. Like a child, you call it what it could be before it fully forms. I draw you a half moon, you claim a thigh that quivers in nosy moonlight. I sketch the curve of a suture needle in your mind will supple it, mollify the metal into a breast dropping into a waiting hand. Anything cylindrical is off the table. This practice of misnaming was once a rite of passage, a multiple choice test bootlegged on middle school bathroom stalls and nail polish and Sharpies, the most sacred parts of ourselves abstracted in our childish renderings. How much mischief could a drawing conjure then, when the first time seeing myself was not in glass, but in two sharp angles and miscalculations, inches and inches of space between what a boy could reach with the flick of his tongue. In one sketch, the vagina yawned open like a greedy newborn. In another, it bled like a bullet wound. At home, I laid in bed, pried myself open in front of a mirror to find the monster I thought I was. I tried to draw it from memory, its curves and folds, shaded in where skin was darker than the rest of my body. It looked more like a rose, mid-wilt, just beginning to stink with its thirst. In its fullest form, I couldn't call it sexy. It did not make me desire myself. Like a flower in its last days, it only said, look at me now. I will not always be this pretty. Gretchen, how terrible is it that I remember this? It was a terrible time. Okay, this is the poem I'm going to read from my full length that's coming out next year. So this is Baby Mania. In the middle of the night, I wake, my arms hanger bent for the child I don't have. Somebody's wishing fruit on this womb, and it tells me so. A half step into irregularity, a missed cycle, the sham of phantom pains with no blood to show for it. I count my late days like petals of a flower frazzled from its stem when I leave things up to fate. I'm pregnant, I'm not pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm not pregnant. See, I'm tired of funerals, the pallbearing of myself, the week-long procession into fresh pairs of underwear. I grow jealous of the flower, how it doesn't ask for anything, how it splays itself in sunlight for the dusting of pollen, and this is enough. My family places month-old babies in my lap, and my body wills the crib of tissue it has created to stick a little longer. Fussy children quickly quiet to wonder under my gaze. Perhaps beneath my heartbeat, they hear the soft collapse of blood and possibility, indelicate in its leaving. They coo, offer their fingers to my lips almost in sympathy. They're there, in their eyes. The child mothers me. Okay, new things. I'm going to read, after the car accident, then I'll read a few poems from a new series that I've started, which I'm really excited about. after the car accident. I slow traffic with my worry, kneeling and checking my car for damage. My palm on its feverish hood like a mother checking a child's temperature, in the heat of the sun doubling its sickness. In the black paint's warped reflection, I could be mistaken for my father. This froggish position, squatting on my toes, my forehead becoming his in its rumpled state, even our concern, biological, shared, right down to the way we squint at an injured thing, the way we have only temporary fixes for what is broken. I list the damages out loud, to no one, to the metronome of my hazard lights, to convince myself I've done it. This too is hereditary, struggling with admissions of guilt. On the phone with the insurance company, I began to unbraid a legacy of blamelessness. Yes, I was operating my vehicle alone. The car was parked and empty when I hit it. This is just another version of the tree falling in the forest question. If no one saw me hit the car, did I do it? If my father never apologized on our old phone calls, did he truly wound me? The insurance agent on the phone is asking questions, following the printed script taped next to her computer screen. Is the car drivable? Are you hurt? I don't know which question I'm answering anymore. It doesn't matter. Yes, it comes pouring out of me like smoke from a car's underbelly, the hiss of air finding the path of least resistance. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I have started a new poem series for the book that I'm working on, and I'm thinking about the male gaze right now, which, oh gosh. So this is Sculpture Study number 1, Brooklyn, New York. A woman's real first lesson about her body is nothing to write home about. The second lesson, one of colonization. It happens in a big city, the sidewalks gone half dust, and the woman believing, for once, there is something for her to claim. This complex ecosystem of space, improvised measurements to guess by, the swing of a tote bag, a soft circumference of hair. The woman is eyeing her way to the J train when a man, made faceless by the crowd, grabs her ass. There are 2 options: be crazy or be quiet while the incident reworks the DNA. There is one option because the silence sires some sort of madness later. Right there on the corner, she stops, marbles against the summer heat, eases her hair from its rubber band to let something free. The faceless man hurts her to still life, an inanimate thing bedazzled in all of the city's wet offerings. The day's earlier drizzle still drying, the humid air relentless with stickiness. What are we allowed to be when we hurt in public, human, or statue? As if she thinks this into existence, the evening sun glosses her brown skin in a coat of bronze and she grows into the ground. No one can tell the difference as they shuffle around her and give extra space. Look how gentle they are when there is no harm to be done. Okay, Sculpture Study number 2, Cincinnati, Ohio. Yet again, a woman hears the whistling of shame at the bedroom window. Past noon and the curtains still drawn. Everything unwashed and stink sweet with an unruly night's sweat. It's not what you think. Outside, the day simply goes on. The car alarm startles a sleeping newborn. A Walmart bag splits from the sharp edge of a notebook cover and school supplies scatter into grass. A mother nears her breaking point, talking her daughter through a tantrum. It's okay, honey, I love you. It wasn't your fault. Over the small cemetery of color. The sun takes on that particular intensity where it works into the contours of love and lessens its patience. Inside, in the bedroom, a false dark. The woman thinking of the night before when she asked a man, desperate, how did you mean it when you said you loved me? Just then, the world, a heavy coat rended by an old hook, an open trauma, nylon yawning apart under the weight. In the false dark, the woman is finally true to her heartbreak. This is not a poem about suicide, but she slits herself wide with feeling. There are ghosts, and then there is grief, both asking permission to be cast out. The sun is setting, turning the particular orange that makes dull things glitter. The curtains warm to the touch when she opens them. Her tears, little found diamonds, as she lets the shame in. Okay, and I have one last poem. And this is titled From the Photo Album, #1. Again, thank you all for listening and being here. Through the aperture, a couch halved by sunlight, a soft lasering of light splitting the room in slanted tubes. A girl seated in the maw of sunken paisley, stretched across the path of the sun's blade. How appropriate, this early dissection of childhood. Out of the frame, someone lures her gaze away from the lens's open, stuck eye, and she half smiles because she is expected to meet softness with more of it. Out of the frame, her mother sees the girl is slow to smiling. Baby, what's wrong? The dark slit between her teeth, the corners of her mouth straining upwards, a parody of love. Her school uniform small and crumpled with the afternoon, a boy's game of which she is early to playing. The smear of a greasy hand retucked into the skirt's waistband. Baby, why are you not smiling? The shadow of the dining room chandelier like an arthritic hand cast across the girl's neck, the threat, a patient ghost in the home. Go on now, smile. The picture already taken by a man who says her name just like the boy did. Danger sugared over with desire. The beginning of a confession lost in the shutter's crunch. The boy's name trapped in the aperture. In the apartment. Apart meant distance between the eye and the eye. I am looking at a photograph of myself, dirtied with sepia. I am refusing to meet my eyes, refusing to see what I know of my own becoming. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Taylor. Is that last poem from Shutter? Or is it new?
It's new.
Okay. But everybody, we know, what did I tell you about these readers tonight? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poems. So grateful that I got to hear you read tonight. And so we're going to move on to our last reader. About several years ago, I proclaimed myself the president of the Amorak Huey fan club on Twitter. And since then, that fan club has grown in size and scope immensely. And anybody can be a part of the fan club. You just have to read Amorak's work. And there's lots of it to read. I turned to Amorak's poems to teach me about turns, to teach me about endings, and to teach me about how the small moments of a life are full of revelation and beauty. And I don't know what else I can say, but I am the president of the fan club, and so I'm very happy to let the rest of you now hear Amorak Huey.
Thank you so much, Donna, and thank you to Taylor and Ines for such beautiful poems. And I wouldn't blame anybody if they just wanted to log off and go think about the poems they just heard, because those were amazing. But I was gonna start with poems from my new book, but I'm gonna read one poem first because my friend and college roommate Mark Orr is here, and I don't think you've ever heard me read before. And this is a poem from my previous book, Boombox, and it's called The Boys in the Parking Lot, and Mark is one of the boys in the parking lot. So I'm gonna read this poem. It's called The Boys in the Parking Lot. I don't know how we did any of it, that sleepless, swaggering summer, soundtracked by drum solo, rhythm guitar, our names tattooed in intricate snakes and skulls across our movie version visions of ourselves. So hot that year, the blacktop still sticky at midnight. We angled our cars just so, and our bodies, every move a pose, every pause an image that might be our first album cover. The intense one, the sad one, the bored one, each staring into the middle distance as if any of us could see anything outside of our own skin. And then I'm going to read some poems from my new book, which is, I guess, not that new anymore. It's about 10 months old. It's dad jokes from late in the patriarchy, from Sundress also. So shout out to Sundress for being the press of record for several of us here. I'll read the first poem in the book. It's called A Primer. My complaint about life is it happens only in order. A thesis of sorts, a kind of argument that might seem out of place here. But I have seen a man ride his bicycle into Beltline traffic and die. I have seen my grandmother coughing blood after a lifetime of menthols. I have seen the closed casket of a friend who asked the wrong person for a ride home after a long shift. The end of a story is the shape of a hole in the fence the story runs through on its way to the end. Spielberg filmed E.T. in chronological order so his young cast could deliver an authentic emotional performance. It helped them bond with the alien in the natural course of the narrative, leading to the weepy climax he sought. This anecdote suggests something about art, youth, loss, something about believability, or the cruelty of a man who knows what he wants. This is, we were all Odysseus in those days. A young man learns to shoot and dies in the mud, an ocean away from home. A rifle in his fingers and the sky dripping from his heart. Next to him, a friend watches his final breath slip ragged into the ditch. A thing the friend will carry back to America, wound, souvenir, backstory. He'll teach literature to young people for 40 years. He'll coach his daughter's softball teams, root for Red Wings and Lions and Tigers, dance well, love generously. He'll be quick with a joke and firm with handshakes. He'll rarely talk about the war. If asked, he'll tell you instead his favorite story. Odysseus escaping from the Cyclops with a good wine, a bad pun, and a sharp stick. It's about buying time and making do, he'll say. It's about doing what it takes to get home. And you see, he has been talking about the war all along. We all want the same thing from this world. Call me nobody, let me live. This one's a little lighter, and one that I'm not sure that I've read this one before. So you might be the first people to hear me read this one out loud. It's called I Am Not Arnold Schwarzenegger, in case anyone was wondering. I am not Arnold Schwarzenegger. I am 14 years old at the video store, deciding on a movie my father and brother might both enjoy, deciding who I will be for the rest of my life. Oh, how this can go wrong. There are so many rules that are great. There are so many rules that I'm grateful for any that are written down. Rewind, return by noon, 3 movies per night per household, more than enough for the 48 hours we have to fill each week. Choice after choice, and every story promises the same metaphors for the Cold War, or sex, or the war between the sexes, all of which is shorthand for adults not understanding each other or themselves. I haven't learned this yet. I still believe wisdom is real and waiting around the corner. I want to see Porky's, but my father is in the car and I'm not supposed to know about the skin mags in the back of his desk. We keep our erections to ourselves. We watched Risky Business on last weekend's visit, and I would happily spend 2 more hours with Rebecca De Mornay, but my father doesn't like the ending. Terminator then, again. It's no longer a surprise when Arnold turns out to be the villain, but still, there's pleasure in watching him learn to be human so he can destroy us. His body is a marvel, a measure against which I have no chance. His body is relentless. I am somehow both skinny and pudgy. His biceps are a religion. My bones are only bone, no titanium anywhere. I am too young to see the inevitability of a sequel in which he is the hero. Sarah Connor, Arnold asks, his eyes hidden behind those sunglasses, and I see what he's really asking. Yes, I want to say, yes, I am, though I know what the answer will cost. The poems, I mean, as you can see, these poems are about masculinity and violence, and then they're about learning how to, I don't know, growing up and learning how to be a boy, a man, male. And then they at the end of the book, they turn towards being a parent, and being a parent, writing about being a parent, and I've said this before, it's always, for me, it's always also writing about death. As when I became a parent, I became keenly aware of mortality, like my own mortality and my parents' mortality and my kids' mortality. It's omnipresent in my mind once I became a parent. And in particular, I think being a parent in America in the 21st century. This poem is called Yes and. If I say everything is a gun, you have to say yes, and the gun is always going off. If I say someone could get hurt, you have to say yes, and that's what it means to be alive. I say, does it have to be like that? You say yes, and if you had a dime for every broken heart in your wake, you could be elected president. I say, but, and you interrupt. No arguing. Someone really could get hurt. Why, only today, some guy shot his wife. Yes, and he killed a kid too, though that might have been accidental. I say nothing. You say yes, and let's start again. It's America. Everything is a gun. Prayer for what I do not want. I do not want to write a poem about a tyrant. A tyrant is not a poem, is not a form of a poem, is not syllable count or metrical pattern, is not a swarm of bees wearing a poem suit, is not one wolf standing on the shoulders of another wolf wearing a trench coat and pretending to be a poem. I do not want to write a poem about men in suits or wolves in suits or sheep in cargo shorts. I do not want to write poems about videos of men in suits shooting children or other men. I do not want to write poems about suits of body armor or tear gas. I do not want my poems to be tear gas. I do not want to be tear gassed. I do not want to tear up the documents of our nation's history, declarations and proclamations and constant whatnots. A nation is not a poem, but each poem is a nation. I believe in words and the opposite of words. I was taught to believe what I was told. I was told to believe in words delivered by mailmen and pastors and presidents. I was told to believe in the power of the simple sentence delivered with passion and honor by a man in a suit, or a man standing on the shoulders of other men, wearing a bloody suit of flesh and pretending to be a poem. One more gun poem, American Prayer. Some parents on Facebook this morning are wondering whether it's truly PJ Day at the elementary school. Trust but verify and all that, which is something a president once said about international diplomacy, or maybe the motto of a newspaper, I forget, but if your mother says she loves you, check it out, right? What happens if our children wind up alone in their Hogwarts robes, their Stegosaurus fleeces and sloth slippers, classmates clad in the usual jeans, t-shirts, sweaters and soccer jerseys, track pants and armor-plated backpacks? Perhaps a valuable lesson in how we are ultimately on our own, in the limits of what we can prepare for, in how we know when things have gone disastrously awry. We have children and hope for the best, my God, but that's not always what we get. Let them wear pajamas, someone's father posts. What's the worst? Though he doesn't mean it, we know the answer. Spring is weeks away, but it's cold and the sidewalks are winter slick, half melted, refrozen, dangerous. Bundle up, we beg, and our children tumble into the sky of a new day, ceramic, shatterproof, and dressed for dreaming. I'll read one more from the book and then two new ones. This is the other thing about being a parent, at least for me, it meant lots of road trips, lots of time in the car with my family, driving to or from other family members usually. And this poem is called, and so there's several road trip poems in this book. This one is called Driving Home. After Thanksgiving, we learned that Ariana Grande has been named Artist of the Year. Dark when we depart, dark when we arrive. In between, we listen to pop music, complain about the never-endingness of Indiana, pretend we are not bored of our own company. This is the nature of time, every moment of life a metaphor for all the others. Ariana Grande played Kat in that show the kids used to watch, played the same character in a second show, this new incarnation peacocking up the most attention-hungry traits of the original. The arc of the self bends towards caricature. She also sings a little less conversation, a little more touch my body, a Nobel-worthy sentiment for sure, and I'm only mostly kidding. I can't say aloud how these lyrics rumple my blood because my kids are here and they have no idea how much I think about desire, how much I desire. I offer instead a half-assed diatribe on material girl and self-determination, the passage of time and the corporatization of music. My thesis and all my supporting evidence are things I assume or do not quite remember. My wife is rolling her eyes. My kids have tuned out. I am alone. I have been driving so long, my body will feel still in motion days from now. One day, Ariana Grande will play a concert where a bomb goes off and people die. Ariana Grande will reveal herself as a kind and sympathetic human in the aftermath. We do not know any of this yet, though we should probably see it coming. We are quiet for miles. Green signs count down our remaining journey. Out of nowhere, my daughter asks, what would happen if someone built a city but forgot to make roads to connect it to anywhere else? People would eventually find it, I say, which is sort of an answer, sort of a prayer. And then I'll read just two new ones. I have a new manuscript that's in progress, and it's sort of about, I don't know, it's sort of about sex and it's sort of about climate change. And the only person who's read it says, I don't know that this really works. So I don't know. I want it to work, so we'll see. This one is called Michigan's Fruit Crop in Danger with a Hard Frost on the Way. Dreamed last night about making out with someone I have no business dreaming about, much less the making out. It's all my body can think about today. Plus, I'm worried about the strawberries. The neighbor's daffodils droop. The forsythia in the alley has surrendered. I don't like how cold it is. This is the only flesh I've been given, the only time it will be alive under this sky in this season. How unfair. Last week, the weather was invitation, open house, outstretched hand. Today, everyone is mad all over again about all the same things we've been mad about for a year. My tendons ache. I stretch. My bones dream the body real. And then the last poem I'll read, this poem has been pending at the New Yorker since February of 2021. So I'm hoping that by reading it tonight, I'm manifesting it into their acceptance queue. And you can all say that you heard it here first when you see it in the New Yorker. This poem is after, the first line is after a line by Layla Chatty. The poem is called For So Long, I Was Foolishly Proud of the Scar on My Thumb. I wanted to be a man until I met enough men to know better. The pain of understanding that arrives too late is the teeth of handsaw against skin, a mistake while dragging away limbs after a storm. I rend my flesh like wax, a wound that's worse when I look at it. My own blood, the white of my bone exposed, bleached, dying coral, ashed over desert, one dry lake bed after another. I thought I was helping. I thought I was restoring order. I have no excuse for the damage I have done. Men are killing the world. My skin will heal, will knit a pale contrail across the smaller sky of my body, will still be the skin of a man. Thank you so much, everybody.
I don't know about everybody else, but I think those new poems are working. Thank you so much, all three of you. Like I said, completely different voices, and every one of them just astounding. And I know that we're at time, but if anybody has a quick question in the chat, or would like me to repost a book link or anything like that, just let me know. If you need to go, we understand. I'm going to drop one more time in the chat where you can find us on social media. And if you wish to support our readers getting paid, where you can do that. Again, tell your friends if they missed this reading, it will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning. And thank you for you. It's you know, it's somewhat of a holiday tonight, so we appreciate you giving up your time this evening to join us. Next month in April, on April 20th, we have one of our readers, I think, is here tonight. We are going to have Jessica Cuello, Marie, I don't know how to say your last name. Is it Gautier? And Fox Henry Fraser reading for us in April. So please mark your calendars for April 20th. And oh, it's 4:20 on that night. That might be a fun reading. Mark your calendars to join us. And thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop the recording. If you'd like to hang out and chat, ask some questions, feel free. Otherwise, we'll see you again next month.